AWS Head Start program. What we do is we work with startups in the education sector, and we help them build their services on AWS.
So We Power Tech is AWS's diversity and inclusion outreach program. The program is really twofold. One is to increase the number of underrepresented technologists within the industry, and the second is to provide a platform for them to be seen and heard.
If you're wondering how the AWS evangelism team might be able to help your startup, there are many ways. We're technically credible across our entire catalog of products, so we can help you figure out which services might be able to meaningfully impact your business. We also want to help tell your story. So if you're building something cool, we want to know about it and help spread that message to the world. So you might end up on stage at an event like AWS Summit. If you're a startup, you should also definitely check out the AWS Lofts. These are event spaces that are free to anyone with an AWS account. And you can treat them like co-working spaces, but the awesome thing about them is that we also have people like technical evangelists like myself, solutions architects that come and give hands-on technical workshops and sessions to help you learn how to more effectively utilize the AWS products and platforms that you're already building on top of.
We are a dedicated team of people that love startups, that we just want to come and help you with whatever we can, whether it be technical or business focused. We are here to help guide you and make sure that you do have a say in what's going on. We do get your feedback. We do bring that feedback to the service teams. That is what we're here for.
Perfect, we eventually got it working. So I've posted 2 links in the chat for you. So as a Startup Grind Global community, we are asking everyone to put forward that application if you're interested in Mentorship Month. That's the first link, which is the Airtable. We're then sending that on to AWS, who are able to kind of select the best startups from our community worldwide to participate in this Mentorship Month. It's really worthwhile. They have compiled some of the best heroes throughout their community, and AWS is one of the biggest companies in the world at the moment. So it's worthwhile having. We are also starting, next month, we're starting an Activate month with them. So I've also posted a link for Activate credits in the chat. So as a startup, I know as a developer myself, using AWS can get quite expensive. So they have put together a program, AWS Activate, which gives you up to $100,000 worth of credits to use their servers for the first 2 years for your startup. So it can help you a lot out with your hosting costs. The application process is within that link. So I'll pass it back to you, Noya. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the chat with Or and Noya. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much. Hi, guys. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us today. My name is Noya. I'm a Startup Grind Rishon Lezion co-director. I just want to say something personal. Our director, Tal, is not here with us today. He and his wife are waiting for the birth of their first child. And Tal, I just want to say that we're super exciting and we love you. And I wish that you were here with us today, but it's a good circumstances, so we're good with that. We love you. We will send you the record in the end of the event. And for the new members that are here with us today, I'm not sure that you know, but Startup Grind is a global community with more than 2 million members, 2 million community members, which are entrepreneurs, and we're active in more than 600 cities around the world. Our community support and here to support and in the new entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs that want to make friends and help others. And we're here to connect between you guys and the ecosystem. It is very important for me to say to all the participants here, guys, it's a rough times. In these times, it is important for us just to let you know that you can approach us. We will assist you in everything that we can. We're here for you to pass these rough times. Don't give up. Entrepreneurs never give up. And just feel free to join our community, to ask for help. We're here for you. And today we're hosting Or Hiltch. Or is the CTO and founder of Skyline AI. Hi, Or. Can you hear us?
Yes, hi everybody.
Thank you for being here with us today. I'm super excited because this is also the Mentorship Month in partnership with AWS. During this session, we will speak about the CTO role in startups and, of course, about your role as a mentor. And I will start with a question that you probably heard a lot during this last few weeks. How is it to run a company? How is it to run a startup during these days, during the coronavirus crisis?
Yeah, so things are definitely challenging. I would say that most of the heat is actually being suffered by the HR departments. These are the guys or ladies in our case who have to make sure that everyone is chill, everyone is able to work effectively. I think that because I would say there are two sides for when it comes to the day-to-day work. So not a whole lot has changed because Skyline is a company that's spread out through a few continents. So we have an office here, and we have our main office is actually in Manhattan, and we also have some employees on the West Coast. So we're pretty accustomed to having Zoom meetings and communicating without having the preferable face-to-face kind of thing. So in this respect, I would say that our productivity remained quite similar. But these are definitely turbulent times for the business, right? So I guess like every assumption that we had about the type of deals that we're going to close this year has had to go through some adjustments.
I'm happy to hear that you survived those rough times, and I'm sure that you will survive them as well. And I know I've noticed that some of the participants here are young entrepreneurs they're starting their entrepreneurial path right now. And I will be happy to hear about your path, your journey, your entrepreneurial background. How did it all begin?
So it's a good question. I would say that I definitely didn't begin as an entrepreneur. I was kind of like I had the quite classic computer nerd evolution. So I started out basically fighting computers when I was very young, like at the age of 5 or 6. That's when I kind of got my first computer. And I wanted to play games, and everything was in English. There was no user interface. You had to type in commands. And I had a few neighbors. I had one of my neighbors was a senior computer engineer for Intel, and he actually, whenever I kind of like messed things up, I tried to run the game, but I accidentally deleted my hard drive or something. Then he would pop up and help me fix stuff. So I kind of like I got into computers at a very young age. I started programming at a very young age. I had my first job in the industry was for an internet company called VGames. That was basically a gaming portal acquired by Internet Zahav, one of the popular ISPs here in Israel. So I actually used to write about video games there. So it was content. It wasn't a technical role, but since it was a really small kind of startup, I did get the opportunity to play around with the database and add some entries about reviews sometimes, help manage the forum, which also had some kind of technical aspects to it. But that was still like, I would say, not professional work. So it was more like it was a good
opportunity. Like a hobby.
It was a hobby, but it was like a technical opportunity to kind of like manage my technical skills. But then I would say, like fast forward, like maybe 10 years later, it all began when I quit my job. So I used to be R&D manager for Union Bank of Israel. It all began when I basically told my wife, she was my girlfriend back then, that I'm going to cut my salary in half and join a startup. And this was a startup by 3 amazing entrepreneurs who later became my partners, Guy Tzipori, Amri Reitersdorf, and Iri Amirav. So as soon as I met them, I told my wife that, okay, I'm going to have to quit everything and join these guys as an employee in one of their startups, because I had the kind of like the intuition that I'm going to, if I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to have to learn from somebody, and these guys look like the perfect bunch, and indeed things went that way. So after the company, after the startup I worked for got sold, then I actually co-founded my first startup together with these guys. So it was called Streamer. It was acquired by ironSource, and later on, we also co-founded Skyline together.
Yeah, that was actually my next question about your journey, about the first company and the second company. So it's pretty interesting to hear that you've told us just about it. Can you tell us about the obstacles during the way, like with the team and your decision? It's not an easy decision to make, like to cut your salary in half, to do something totally different. It's pretty risky, I believe.
Yeah, you mean, yeah. So at the beginning of the career, I would say that, you know, it all depends on the stage where you're at in life, right?
Definitely.
So it depends how many privileges you have. So back then, I still wasn't married. I didn't have any children.
It wasn't that risky at the time.
Yeah, it looked like I didn't feel like I'm taking any risk at all, to be honest. I felt like, you know, on contrary, if I'm going to stay where I am, that was the risk, right? I didn't want to, you know, didn't want to be one of these people who actually work for the same place for 20 years. And that's basically part of my character. It doesn't have it. The place was very good. I had a very, really good job. Yeah, I think that, you know, I guess it also, obviously there is some correlation with age, because the younger you are, the less obligations you have, right? So, you know, back then I think that kind of like I felt that there is nothing that I can't do if I work hard enough. That was, and by the way, I think that that's part of the magic of being in the tech industry. I think, and that's especially true with programmers, because you know, many people mistake to think that, you know, you need to be super smart to be a really good programmer. But well, at least my 2 cents about it is that you actually need to work very hard to be a good programmer. So, you know, one of the beautiful things about, you know, kind of like assuming this role of engineering leadership and later on being a tech entrepreneur is the simple fact that, you know, the guy sitting next to you could be twice as smart as you, but if you work twice as hard, then you are on the same level. So I kind of like, and I had this experience whenever I kind of like took on a challenge as a salary person, but also later as an entrepreneur. I kind of had the experience that, you know, whatever I try to tackle, if I work hard enough, then eventually I achieve the result.
I definitely agree with that. I think it's the entrepreneurial mindset that you need to set to yourself. Work hard, believe in your idea, believe in what you do, and you will succeed. But this is my opinion. And it was obvious for you that you will be the CTO in this company and in the first company if you were the CTO, like to deal with the technological things?
Yeah, so I think I always had a view of, I would say, of wanting my product to be used. So I was one of these programmers that even though I really had a good, I always enjoyed the technical aspects of programming. I would never want to write any piece of software that isn't used by anybody. So I always, whenever I had like an idea, you know, I had this side project or whatever, I always kind of like thought about how do I market this? How does this actually get to people? And I had a few actually side projects while I was a salary person working for my employees back then, that actually had made some. I actually could make a pretty good living just by these side projects, and that was I would say these were profitable companies, kind of like that I made, like tiny companies.
Okay.
They didn't have a scale, right? So they weren't like the type of companies that have millions of dollars in revenue, but it was a really good, I would say, environment to play around with entrepreneurial ideas, and you know, basically, it was a good opportunity to touch upon the different aspects that actually are usually required by you know, when you want to actually develop a good product and ship it to people.
Okay.
Be it marketing, sales, support.
So you basically did a little bit from everything, just to get more experience.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Amazing, thank you. You've mentioned Skyline AI before, and this is your current startup. And I will be happy if you will tell us about the startup, the company. What is it? What you do in Skyline AI?
First, so Skyline AI is an AI asset management company, which means that we partner with some of the top real estate institutions, mostly in the US, but also globally, to establish investment vehicles that are augmented by artificial intelligence technology. So that means that if you take your usual asset management company, so the asset manager, it's basically the brain connecting the capital on one hand and the real estate on the other hand.
Okay.
And traditionally, asset managers were used to excel because they had really good connections. They had a good network. They had really good real estate analysts, right? That they were really local. So you want to invest in Dallas, you had someone sitting in Dallas, right? And then we kind of like, and by the way, as a consequence, most asset managers, they have this kind of like top to bottom approach, where if they would want to invest in something, then they would start by looking at the country or the state and then the market. And then once they pick a market, they would be looking at deals at that market. And the way Skyline does this is totally different. So the idea for the company actually began when we started to invest in real estate ourselves. After we sold our previous company, we started to invest in multifamily properties in the US. And we kind of like, as technology people, we are very kind of like a bottom up in our approach. So we said, okay, let's scan everything, all right? Forget about the markets. Let's look at all assets, right? What's the entire universe of properties that are investable in the US? And then we'll start to make predictions about them, right? So this group of properties here, we could say that with a very good degree of confidence that they are likely to outperform the market in terms of rent growth and other stuff. That property here, we have this anomaly detection algorithm that says, hey, this property is currently not marketed, so it's not listed for acquisition. However, it is transactable. So if you actually approach the owner, you may be able to buy the property. So we're starting to play around with these type of ideas, which eventually led to Skyline, which is kind of like a hybrid between data science, engineering, and real estate.
It sounds super interesting. I did my research. I've read about you before, about the company. And in what stage you are right now as a startup?
So we are, I would say, entering the growth stage. So we have raised Series A and seed.
Okay.
So about $25 million thus far. We have about 40 employees, 10 of which I think maybe a bit more in the US and the rest here in Israel. And we are currently managing a portfolio of assets which amounts to about $100 million.
And can I ask what are your plans for the future with the startup?
Yeah, of course. So, well, obviously the COVID situation changed our plans quite a bit. But I think one thing that technology is very good at, and I think historically, is pattern matching, right? So if you kind of like consider some of the classic usage for artificial intelligence specifically, that's trying to look at historical data and determining anomalies in the data. So saying, okay, this is a pattern, and this guy here goes out of the pattern, right?
Okay.
So that's why even before the crisis, one of our largest real estate partners in the US is actually quite a big fund which focuses on distressed opportunities. So that means basically scanning the market and focusing on those assets which seem to be troubled, such that you could actually leverage kind of your knowledge about the potential of the asset versus its current state to gain a profit. So a lot of our investment vehicles in the coming year are going to be around distressed opportunities, and then also expanding to additional asset classes. So currently we are investing mostly in equity investments in multifamily, but we are actually already beginning to look at other asset classes like office.
Amazing. Well, good luck with that. I can't wait to hear about you guys in the future. And we've mentioned before that you are the CTO of Skyline AI, and you also established a CTO's community. Am I right?
Yes, the Tel Aviv CTO Club.
I think that most of our participants will be happy to hear about this community, to what can we find there? How can we join? They actually can join to this community.
Sure, of course. So the Tel Aviv CTO Club, that's a club that I co-founded together with Shimon Toltz, my good friend, who's the founder and CTO, I think CEO now actually of the tree. We basically started, I think the idea started when Shimon attended a meeting in the San Francisco CTO Club, and kind of like the idea and the vibes, and then he came to me and we said, okay, let's do this together. So the Tel Aviv CTO Club, it's actually a really small club, because we really have a kind of strict rules of the type of people we want to have in the club, not because of I would say of any reason other than the fact that we know that what we are good at, what we can actually how we can actually contribute from our experience, and that experience is mostly around being in the co-founder CTO position. So the club is for CTOs who are usually also founders.
Okay.
And there are a few exceptions, right? So we have engineering managers from corporates, and what have you. At least some, if someone actually, one of the rules of the club is that if someone could actually recommend you, then there's a good chance that you will get accepted. But the club is basically it's meant to be kind of the AA for CTOs, right? So in lots of cases you face a lot of dilemmas. Let's say the environment right now. So how do I raise funds for my startup?
Yeah.
Or how do I deal with cutting salaries? Or how do I improve my hiring? So can I rely on a hiring team, or do I have to do it myself? What are the challenges? So if you're the CTO, so there are actually a lot of types of CTOs. I think CTO. It's a really large spectrum. I think that on one end of the spectrum you have the ones that are really micromanaging teams, right? So they are acting like I would say like high-level group leaders, where they have daily meetings with everybody, and they are part of the sprint planning, and everything is on the day-to-day of the management.
Right.
And that's great. That's one type. And then you have the other type, which is more on the I would say innovation side, where they would try to come up with new ideas for the product.
Try to keep and develop the product all the time.
Yeah, on the product side. And then there are the ones that are simply, I know one of the members of the club is actually just a really good engineer. So he's the co-founder and CTO of a pretty successful company, and he's basically just the best engineer at the company. So he's like I would say one of the company's unfair advantages is that they have this guy to actually be in the engineering team. So it's really all over the place.
Okay.
So it's a good ground to discuss all of these things.
And I want to ask another thing about the CTO rule in startup. I know that for me, for example, it was so difficult to find a good CTO that will join my startup as a co-founder. Do you have any tips for young entrepreneurs and young startups in their beginning of the way that need to find a good CTO that will join the team? How do I pick a good CTO that will develop and work with the product? And I believe in the approach that you can do everything. Don't deal only with the technological issues, deal with a little bit more. And how do you pick those people?
So it's a great question. I think that first of all, it's one of the key questions, follow-up questions I would say to your question is whether you're looking for a co-founder and an equal partner, right?
Right.
Because if you're looking for, just for someone to kind of be the technical spearhead of the company, that's one thing. Whereas if they're going to be your partner and you're co-founder in the company, then that probably requires a different set of qualities. I would say, but probably my biggest tip would be to not look for a CTO. So don't necessarily, if you're just starting out and you're still like really early, so you don't have any funding or anything like that, I wouldn't necessarily look for someone who has already been a CTO. I would try to actually aim more for, a really gifted engineer who is really hungry to succeed and could actually share, the vision that you have for whatever it is you want to create. And I would say that also that you probably want to learn. So if you don't have a technical background, so you probably want to learn and do your research about what it is that you're going to develop, so that you can actually level up with the lady or guy that you're talking to for this role. Because it would help you to actually better explain yourself, right? And it would help you kind of like appear more serious when you engage with the person. And you could also, try to actually have ask some questions, show, develop some kind of understanding of what the person is actually capable of.
I think it's one of the most difficult missions for startup is to find a good CTO that actually will believe in the vision and the dream and want to develop the product and to make it real. It's one of the most difficult things to find, and a lot of startups are not surviving without CTO. You can't develop a technological product without a CTO, and that leads me.
I agree.
And that leads me actually to my next question. Do you see any different regarding the CTO role in the past and nowadays? I mean, nowadays you can do outsourcing. You don't really need a CTO to develop something. And on the other hand, you need a CTO. You can deal with it. You need someone that will manage everything and deal with the outsourcing. So how can you play with those things? Do you see any differences?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I think that well, it used to be, and I think it's still the case in some in some cases, that the CTO used to also be the first programmer, right? So traditionally, before we had such an easy and good access to outsourcing, you'd have to find someone who would build the product, right?
Right.
And that would usually be the first programmer, and it's actually very important that when you're starting out that you do things the right way. I think that today the CTO role is essentially the co-founder and CTO role is also it always used to be about sales, right? So you also need to, if you're developing a highly technological product, and let's say that you're developing like endpoint security or something like that, and you're going to need a really technical sales guy to actually be able to to convince an enterprise to adopt this product, right?
Right.
So I think that what we see with in recent years where outsourcing became more prevalent is that CTOs are becoming a bit more forward-facing. So so you see them in the news, you see them raising money. So they became a really important pillar when trying to raise money from VCs, right? So it's not just being the first programmer. Sometimes they're not doing that at all right now. But I would say you probably find you still find any type of CTO even today.
I know that it's pretty difficult to try and raise money from VCs if one of the founders or co-founders actually is not a CTO. VCs are looking for this role in startups. It's necessary.
And that's for a good and that's for a good reason, I think, because imagine like if you were an investor, let's say you're sitting on the investment committee of a VC, then when you're looking at this company who's going to you find this really cool entrepreneur, they have this amazing idea and vision, but then she doesn't come from a technical background. Then you try to think, okay, what is this team's unfair advantage, right? Because if it's just the idea, then let's say that you actually end up investing, but then after a few months, competition starts popping up, right?
Right.
So maybe and you could have a lot of unfair advantages that aren't about technology. You can be a really good salesman, right? You can be you could be really good at raising money. You could be really good at a product and thinking and lots of other stuff. But you can also be really good at technology, right? And if you are really good in technology, let's say that you spent your entire life in cybersecurity or in some other vertical, right? Then you could actually have a significant unfair advantage versus the competition. That's something very lucrative, right? That investors will always be looking for when it comes to investing in a tech like startup.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I want to ask now a little bit different questions, because we opened this session by saying that this is our mentorship month with the in partnership with AWS, and you are AWS mentor. Can you tell us a little bit about this role? What is a mentor? How do you see this role for you?
Sure, certainly. So I think that the first one of my main ideas for a good mentor is that the mentor is someone who actually inspires you. And that's probably the most important thing. So at least in my experience, so looking back at people who used to be my mentors in some sense, so what I needed from them is inspiration, right? So, I used to work for this place, and right, I had this someone amazing in my team. And even if they didn't spend lots of time with me, I kind of like, I looked at how they work and how maybe sometimes it was, how they do things. So they do things in a really smart way. Sometimes it was how how they treat other people in the team, or sometimes it was how they face management. And all of these things, it really, I kind of I was inspired to become like them. And that was kind of like I would say the most important thing. That's why, you could actually have, I think nowadays you could actually have, even if you are, you live here in Israel or in Rishon or whatever, and, you can have Jeff Bezos as your mentor, right? You don't really need to be their friend. So you can read about what they did. You can, say they have this, the guy, he's like an entrepreneur. He started this bookstore, right? And then together with his team, they had a vision to come up with AWS, which is in itself a multi-billion-dollar business, right? And then inside of AWS, Jeff Bezos keeps having ideas about, hey, let's use, I don't know, like access capacity and sell that as spot instances, right? Or whatever. So I guess looking at someone like Bezos, you could actually say, okay, I aspire to be like that, right? I like this mentality of not spending where you don't have to, being lean or whatever. And it's ideally you could find someone like that in your workplace, right? So if there's someone in your team, so it doesn't have to be Jeff Bezos, but you could have to be, like a really good engineer or whatever that you aspire to be like. That's kind of that's the best mentor I can think of.
And do you think that the mentor that you will choose for your life, during your path, must be from the same background as you are, or from different backgrounds? Because I prefer my mentors in different backgrounds than mine, so I can get more inspiration from them. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I would definitely say that nothing is 100%, right? So I wouldn't say that you must pick your mentor from the same industry, from the same vertical. Definitely variety helps. But I would say you probably want to look at somebody who at least used to do what you're doing, right? So maybe now you're a product manager, or you're a QA engineer, or whatever. But and then you could pick someone who is today, he's like the CEO of the company, but he actually used to be a product manager as well. And that you strive to be, you aspire to be as successful as that person in whatever it is that you do. You may do something completely different. But learning from the success of others who used to be at some point in their life at the same path, it's very useful. I would say that let's say that you're a pianist, right? You know how to play the piano. Then learning from Yo-Yo Ma, or from that's actually cello, right? So is not as good as learning from the world's best pianist, right?
Definitely. It's a good example, actually.
You could probably still learn a lot from him, right? So he's an amazing musician, right?
Yeah, you can get a lot of inspiration from those people, but if you want to learn, I believe that they should be with the same background and the same field. It depends on what you're looking for in your mentor. And why do you think that it's important for startups and entrepreneurs in different stages to have a mentor in their path?
I think that the main reason would be to keep improving, right? So, you always want to improve yourself. You always want to become better at what you do. And I think inspiration is probably the easiest way to have some kind of a compass, right? Say, okay, life is complicated. Like you can't really, it's hard to plan many years ahead. But if you have this compass, hey, this woman achieved amazing things, and she used to be like me. Maybe I could also, learn from her experience about how I could, improve my game on whatever it is that I do. That's always useful. It doesn't matter what stage you're at, right? So you could be a CEO yourself. You could be, I don't know, the world's best chess player. You could always have someone better at you in something.
Yeah, definitely. I am always looking for good mentors to be around me. Those are the people that I want to learn from, and I want that will guide me in my path, in my entrepreneurial path. So it's highly recommended to have a mentor during the way. And can you tell us, can you share with us actually any successful stories that you had as a mentor in AWS? Any something that you remember as a mentor?
Yeah, so my role actually at AWS, that's what we call machine learning hero. So that's the role is about mentorship and also about, I would say, a lot of kind of like more like a technical kind of guidance. So most of my friends, most of my colleagues are, already have some kind of interaction with cloud environments.
Okay.
And it usually well, because of my machine learning kind of like background, it's most of my mentorship sessions are in that field. And I think one good there are many kind of like technical kind of sessions I used to have that turned out pretty good. But I think one that maybe stands out is when I was helping a company basically improve the communication between their data science and machine learning teams and their business people. So that was by basically developing this kind of platform that uh, helped helps deliverables by the data science and machine learning team be uh, a lot more freestyle. So kind of like you could exchange emails, sending reports really quickly, and you could iterate faster without having to wait for things to be fully blown production ready.
Okay.
So that was kind of like a mentality change in the team, but also it has some kind of technical aspects to it about developing this thing. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I actually have another question about the CTO role. If a group of entrepreneurs, for example, would approach you and will ask from you to join them as a CTO to their startup, what will you check? Will you check about the team, about the idea? What are the things that you will think about
Yeah, it's a
before you
good.
will join them?
So I would say there's a waterfall of kind of like it's a waterfall process. I would probably the first thing I would start with is, do I like the people, right? Is there a good chemistry there? Because it depends on. I guess it's a personal thing, but at least for me, I always wanted to work with people I like. So if you're like you could be the most amazing and genius guy, but if there's no good chemistry there or bad vibes, then I would usually pass the opportunity. So the first thing would be to have good chemistry with the team, and then I would probably the second thing I would do is I would try to find out, okay, how are they related in any way to kind of like the vision that they are having, right? So
Okay.
let's say if it's someone that they let's say I would it's eventually investments is it's a kind of like a probabilistic kind of decision making process, because you're betting, right? You're saying, okay, the statistics is against you and you want to minimize the risk. And then, you could analytically try to minimize the risk by verifying a set of criteria, right? The first, let's say, if I spend my entire career, I don't know, selling stuff online, maybe I'm at this e-commerce shop where I sell stuff, and I've spent years and years in trying to optimize the way I sell to customers, and now I think I actually cracked up this method that would actually help me scale. So obviously, it's a lot more of a relevant background to start an e-commerce startup than if I came from, let's say, I don't know, like a sports background, right? Or
Definitely.
maybe an education background, right? So the correlation between, what's my background and what I'm shooting for, that's important.
I'm totally agree with that.
The second thing is, I would say I would try to figure out, okay, the person who I'm looking at, did they excel at stuff that they did, right? It doesn't have to be, they didn't have to, I'm not necessarily talking about excelling in I don't know, like in school or something like that. That could also be a good indication, by the way. But in their previous roles, did they do a really good job, right? So let's say that, someone was a QA team leader. Were they like amazing team leaders? Like, did their team really like them? And did the guys at the release management felt like they couldn't live without them because they're doing such an amazing job, right? So, maybe it's their army service. Maybe I don't know, they were pilot graduates, right? You have like 50 people per year or something. So if someone did something amazing in their past, then there's a good, I don't know, I guess it minimizes the risk for you as an investor. And, and if you are like a co-founder, is also a really big investment. Certainly today, right? So today, being, I know, well, at least pre-COVID, right? If you look at the big companies, right? Like Amazon, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, right? So senior people at these companies could become really some of the top players in the game, in the industry, and they also earn quite a bit of money doing that, right?
Right.
So the alternative cost for entrepreneurship in recent years has become really high. I would even say that it's skyrocketed, right? Because as an entrepreneur, at least until a certain stage, until you sell your startup or until you raise enough money, usually your salary is one of the lowest salary in your own company. And if you
Definitely.
and if you say, okay, I'm going to go to this journey for 5 years, or whatever, and until this thing works, then you're an investor. You're actually investing, some of the I would say of the future value that you could have had, right? So yeah, so I would say, kind of like, I would probably make the same decision that, as a VC investor, like if I would be looking at a startup to invest in, that's the same kind of angle you need to have as a co-founder if you're like, if you're considering a team.
Thank you for sharing us with that. And actually, my last and favorite question is, what is your winning tip? The best tip that you ever got in your history? Share it with us. Tell us the secret.
Yeah, so it's I'm sorry for being so boring, but it's the tip is basically work hard. I think that there is a lot of kind of like debate in the industry about work-life balance. And now I have a baby daughter. She's almost 4 years old now, and I will admit to anyone that today I'm not as good as an entrepreneur as I used to be before having kids. And the reason is it's my personal choice, because I choose to spend a lot of my time with my family. Before I had children, before I was married, I wasn't like that. So I would say that mathematically, even though once you dedicate yourself to family, hobby, or whatever, then you can still become like more efficient, right? And you could still, maybe you could, in less hours you could do the same work. but still, if you work more, then you achieve more. And there is a lot of debate going on between companies like Tesla, like Elon Musk, and people like Jack Ma and Alibaba, who have this mentality of working really hard. Like in China, there is the famous 996 thing. So 9 a.m. till 9 p.m., 6 days a week. That's the standard for working hard in China, or for working in China in tech, right? And that's how I used to work most of my career. So I would say for at least, I don't know, maybe it's 10 years or something, most of my career until I had children, that's how my life looked like. I worked like 9 till 9 for 6 days a week, in holidays, in weekends, and whatever. And that's because I did what I like. But I would say just find whatever it is that you like, and do it with a lot of passion and work really hard. That's probably my best.
Your best tip for us.
Yep.
Thank you, Or, for sharing with us your story, your tips. And I will ask the participants, if you have, guys, any questions that you want to ask, or this is the time you can write it in the Zoom group chat. If you have any questions before we finish this session, this is the time. We will wait another few seconds.
Sure.
No, I don't think that we have any questions. Oh, we do have a question. Okay, Eran is asking, how did you evaluate the business model regarding Skyline AI, I guess?
So the way we approached it was, we said, can you hear me? Right.
Yes, I can hear you.
So our approach was, so I would say there are two aspects to what Skyline does. So there is the value that we could provide one of our partners. So when we do real estate, we usually don't go by ourselves. Most of the properties that we would be acquiring are properties that the price ranges anywhere between $20 to $200 million. So it's actually buildings, which means that usually we would partner with someone for the sake of the acquisition. And we wanted to do something that we wanted to achieve results that such that it would be clear to us and to our partners having access to our technology. It is actually worth for the partner to give up a big part of the fees which are collected for the investment. So let me put it like, I'll give you an example. So let's say that I'm developing this amazing technology around basically evaluating assets, right? And I claim that my technology is better than anyone else's. So okay, how much is this thing worth for a real estate player, right? So how do you measure that? The way that we chose to actually answer this question is by saying, if we can prove that like top companies in the world that do real estate, like JLL or Deutsche Bank or whatever, if they are willing to give up a big chunk of their profits just to have access to our technology, then that means that what we're doing has a lot of value, right? Because they have the best real estate people, and if they're willing to give up a certain percentage of their fees just for the sake of hearing what Skyline thinks about the deal, and that means that we did something right. So that was our main KPI when we started the company. Yep.
Thank you all. I think we're almost running out of time. So guys, if you have any more questions, I think we have time for one question. This is the time to send in the chat. And if we don't have any questions, I will say thank you very much for being here with us today. It was my pleasure. Thank you for the thank you for the tips that you shared with us. I wish we had this conversation like 2 years ago when I tried to find my CTO, but luckily I found it. So thank you very much and have a great weekend, almost weekend, guys. And thank you for everyone that participated here today. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye. Thank you all.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
היה אחלה, נויה.
תודה. רגע, אני מנסה לראות...
כל הכבוד, נויה.
תודה. רגע, אני מנסה לראות איך אני שומרת פה את ההקלטה. חכו דקה. טוב, אני מסיימת אתכם. ביי.
ביי.
טוב, ביי.
ביי.
ביי.